My warmest greetings to each of you. I would have loved to join you in person, but we have a family wedding today in India. But perhaps it is more fitting that I'm speaking to you from Mumbai as your voice in India as the chair of the newly established NICCT India board. For years, NICCT has been defined by its excellent work in the Netherlands. Today, with an India board, it becomes a truly bilateral institution. And that shift from a chamber that looks at India to one that is jointly led from both sides is itself a symbol of the larger transition that this NIBM is about. India is no longer simply a market. It is a partner, an innovator, a co-architect of the future, and unleashing this new chapter is the far-reaching EU-India FTA. Most people see the FTA as a tariff agreement. I would argue that it is something more fundamental. It is a trust agreement. Consider this. The deal took 19 years to conclude. Launched in 2007, it collapsed in 2013 over deep mutual suspicion over intellectual property and data governance and lay dormant for a decade. What finally unlocked it was geopolitical pressure and a fundamental shift. The world's two largest democracies concluding that their long-term futures were stronger together than apart. In this sense, the FTA is not merely a schedule of tariff concessions. It is a declaration of strategic trust between Europe and India. And the extent to which it succeeds depends on whether businesses and institutions on both sides build that trust to make it work. But trust requires understanding the other side. So let me share with you 3 insights on how Indian businesses are perceiving this opportunity. First, there is genuine enthusiasm, not about tariff schedules, but about becoming part of European value chains. For many Indian firms, Europe is no longer merely an export destination. It is a strategic partner for innovation and technology, providing predictability and rules-based access in an era of wars, tariffs, and fragmented alliances. Second, Indian businesses have already voted for the Netherlands as Europe's gateway. As much as 20% of India's exports to Europe flow through the Netherlands. Over 300 companies, including HCL, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, are already based there. And third, there is large latent demand from Indian businesses for EU market access, but many do not yet understand or meet its compliance requirements. And closing that gap is a principal goal. Accordingly, we envisage 3 key roles for NICCT India. The first role is to help Indian businesses become ready for EU market access, which depends not just on product quality and pricing, but also on sustainability, digital compliance, and responsible governance. CBAM, EU's carbon tariff, will take full effect in 2028. Yet, most Indian SMEs are nowhere near ready, and some are already seeing their EU contracts get cancelled due to carbon intensity gaps. Beyond CBAM, the EU's AI Act and sustainability requirements are going to raise the bar further. NICCT seeks to help its members understand these requirements and connect them to capabilities so they can compete successfully in European value chains. Our second role is to become the collective business voice that an individual business cannot be on its own. Companies face real pain points. An NICCT member, Netherlands member, transporting goods from India to Rotterdam faces a persistent headache in claiming GST refunds, a process that is slow, arbitrary, and riddled with demands for unofficial payments. One company's problem is an anecdote, but 50 companies facing the same problem becomes a policy issue. And elevating that collective voice to policymakers is precisely the role that NICCT India can play. Through anonymous surveys of firms across the corridors, NICCT can surface pressing pain points and present credible evidence to Indian, Dutch, and EU authorities, including through the FTA's rapid reaction mechanism. We intend to build a corridor trust index, ideally jointly as a Netherlands-India initiative, which provides ongoing public measure of how difficult or hard or easy it is to do business across the corridor. This can help strengthen the competitiveness of Netherlands as Europe's gateway as it faces growing competitive pressures from Germany, France, and Belgium. As Vice President for the World Bank, I saw firsthand how published competitive ratings through the bank's famous Doing Business Index galvanized governments to improve. Our third role is convening roundtables, ideally again as a joint Netherlands-India initiative, to help leaders benefit from peer exchange. We will bring together leaders to discuss the impact of the Middle East conflict. For instance, how are Dutch and Indian companies adapting supply chains and logistics in response to Red Sea disruption? What does geopolitical volatility mean for sourcing, inventory, and investment decisions across the corridor? And how can we build a more resilient India-Netherlands corridor amidst conflict and uncertainty? NICCT India's first step will be an inaugural leadership roundtable in India in August, bringing together 30 leaders to shape the agenda, including Dutch companies active in India, Indian companies expanding into Europe, and key government partners. You see, a chamber that only networks is a club. But a chamber that prepares its members, amplifies their collective voice, and convenes dialogue on pressing issues is a strategic asset. And that is precisely what NICCT India seeks to become. In closing, the EU-India FTA represents an unprecedented opportunity, but trade agreements do not create corridors. People do. Trust does. Rotterdam became Europe's gateway because Dutch traders chose to show up reliably deal after deal. As you undoubtedly heard from Vijay Shekhar Sharma, India's UPI succeeded not just as a technology, but as a trust architecture, bringing 500 million people into the digital economy. And that is the model. Build the trust architecture and transactions will follow. And that is the trust architecture that NICCT India seeks to build together with all of you. I would greatly welcome your inputs and your partnership in shaping the next chapter of the corridor. And I would most warmly invite you to visit me in Mumbai. Thank you very much.